Hello, my name is Morgan, and welcome back to the Contour Collectives Derailed Podcast. I'd just like to start this week by thanking anyone that tuned into my conversation with Chris last week. We had some pretty good feedback on the episode, and we really do greatly appreciate anyone that watched it. This week, I'm talking to Christo Gallagher. He is the other founding member of the Contour Collective and a close friend of me and Hutch. I've known Christo since I was probably around 12 years old. We grew up racing together, we grew up riding together, and I've watched him go from a young, pretty average racer into now being one of the UK's top mountain bike enduro racers. So in this episode, we talk about how he did that. We talk about why he set up the Contour Collective and how he plans on inspiring other people through the Contour Collective to get out and ride, and how he's going to give them the information and the tools they need to do that. So if you do like the episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Give us any questions you have or any feedback you have, and we'll try our best to get back to you and answer them. So we're going to jump in now to my conversation with Christo. Christo, how are you?
I'm good, Morgan. How are you?
Not so bad. Pretty exhausted for the reasons I was just saying. But how was your weekend?
How was my weekend? My weekend, well, it's not over yet. It's still Sunday. Still big Sunday night on the card.
There's still a little bit left. You've been riding this weekend?
Good weekend, yeah. Got like 80k on the mountain bike in yesterday. So
was that most of that on the road?
It was majority on the road. In fact, I think off-road, and a lot of it was pushing at the venue, was about 6k.
That's
I suppose it wouldn't have been
value to riding time.
Well, there was 4 hours at the venue, 4 hours, commuting.
I told you about this, but I tried to go for a ride yesterday, and it took me about 2 hours just to push through this slush and just crash my way down one pathetic run. So didn't do that. So let's start a little bit with your background. How did you get into riding, and why?
How did I get into riding? Well, why I got into riding is very different from how I got into riding. I don't think they go together. Or maybe my why I ride now is very different to why I rode in the beginning. But I suppose I got into riding like how a lot of people do, and it's basically a desire to get airborne on your bike, basically. Whether that's I remember in the woods there was like a stump that we had, and someone had just like dug like a little bomb hole before the stump, so you got a bit like made it into a takeoff. And I filled many hours on that stump. But I suppose the why is to relieve childhood boredom at the time.
Yeah.
So
that's true, actually. I haven't thought about that. That was very much my obsession with anything that I did get involved with. The desire was to, I suppose, fly.
Yeah, I suppose it was the easiest, most readily available opportunity to get airborne. Skateboarding, too difficult. Rollerblading, pretty difficult to actually get any real airborneness. But a bike,
maybe for some.
But a bike, that's pretty easy. You just go off that ramp and you're flying, boys.
Yeah, that's true. Did you ever build any ramps?
Well, my dad built a ramp. Yeah, it was good. And then the best part about it was you put it on top of the curb, so you got a little bit of extra height.
Extra boost. I remember actually with all the kids in the street, we had Laurie, my brother, had built this one. It was as I got older, I would soon learn that it was pathetically small, but at the time it seemed pretty big. And all the kids on the street were going round in a circle, or sending off this little thing, and then someone got the brick out. Or we'd get toolboxes. Did you ever do that? And then you put a bit of plywood, get some kind of box and put a bit of plywood up against it, and then just send it off the box.
So you have a very good toolbox if you're doing that. Mine was plastic and literally would hold about one hammer.
I do.
It's all you needed for bikes back then.
I'm sure it was a plastic toolbox. I'm sure we broke the toolbox. Can you remember what it was that inspired you to get into writing?
Like the time that always sticks in my mind is like the first time I went to Glentress, and it was like before that I just like rode just like in the woods around my house and stuff. But that was just like it's like a dream come true the day I went for the first time. Like I went around the blue route, and like it was better than anything I could have ever imagined. And it's funny as well. Like I remember, like the climb's like a single track climb up at Glentress, and like you wouldn't. You look really worried, Morgan.
Sorry, minor paranoia about GarageBand, but it's fine. You were saying the first time you were at Glentress.
Yeah, I remember like because it's a single track climb. I remember like, I mean nowadays you don't even think about it, but it was like, oh, off to the side it's pretty steep. You better not fall down on the climb. And then it was funny. We were like, I was with my friend and his mum, and we were like cycling up. And we were like, "What? You wouldn't want to fall down here?" And we just like didn't hear anything from his mum for like a few seconds. Like, look, we're actually falling down the bank.
No way. Was that just on the red climb?
It was on the blue climb, yeah.
Oh, on the blue. Is it that steep a bank?
No. Oh.
So
yeah,
it was just it was a trip with your friend to Glentress that was like really kind of ignited the fire for you.
Yeah, I suppose so. That was like showed me like what there was to do. You know, it didn't just end at the local woods. You know, there was like so much more to be doing. Essentially, like I felt like in my local woods I was like completed it. You know, but like Glentress was like, holy crap, there is unlimited amounts of mountain biking here.
Do you remember though? Was there anything? Do you remember your first? The reason I'm asking is obviously part of our aim with the Contour Collective is to inspire people and to get out riding. People that haven't been riding before, and maybe people that haven't even really been exposed to mountain biking. So, can you remember the first like piece of content or media or anything? Can you remember the first time you were exposed to mountain biking?
I think at this point I was definitely probably getting mountain bike magazines. I was a big MBUK fan at the time. Occasionally you'd ask for MBUK, and my mom would pick up MBR, and it would be at the time that wasn't as cool. It was much more like wasn't as gravity focused. You know, but you still looked at the pictures. You know, you're like, this is mountain biking, nice pictures. Probably didn't read much of it, or you'd like obsess over the MBUK like guides of like the like budget £500 hardtail, because like that was like the most expensive bike you could ever imagine owning at the time.
Yeah, it's interesting talking to Catherine the other day too. Like mountain bike magazines. I mean, they're we still go onto their websites. Actually, not really.
That's a spoiler, isn't it, Mark? Watch this space for the up and coming podcast.
We were just talking to Catherine.
Magazines, episode 3. Wait. But they were obviously that was the big deal. That was anything you saw of mountain biking was coming through these different magazines, and each magazine had its own audience and its own kind of focus. MBR obviously was good for some people, and then MBK and Dirt, I suppose. So it was a magazine in the shop. That was like the first time you even saw it.
Yeah, I suppose that's changed now though, like with everything being online, and the magazines that didn't adapt early on have like struggled. Like MBUK that is basically Bike Radar, I'm pretty certain these days. Is that? Yeah, so like
I don't know.
so like they obviously like adapted, but it was they're part of quite a big publishing group, so like probably easier for them to do. Whereas like Dirt obviously probably didn't make anywhere near as much money, and to like make a quick adaptation would have been much more tricky, which was a shame because like they were putting out a lot of the like best content for like the people that were like real enthusiasts, but then they don't like make that much money probably from that.
There was something just cool about it as well. I mean, some of those episodes of Dirt were they were kind of very beautifully laid out, and the photography and everything could be quite sort of stunning. It's a shame.
To be honest though, like when I was younger, like I didn't like dirt. Like I didn't get it.
Really?
Like, yeah, it just didn't. I didn't get what they were trying to do. Like
MBUK was the one I remember. This probably was one of the first times I was exposed to certainly more kind of serious mountain biking. I remember I was in this little corner shop in Perth. I think this was probably the first time I was exposed to mountain biking, and it was an episode of MBUK, and Cedric Gracia was a guest editor. And yeah, MBUK was, in terms of, my accessibility into mountain biking and teaching me like the sort of basics and of a lot of it. MBUK was kind of the best one, I suppose.
I learned everything I know from MBUK.
What piece of information would have been most helpful to you when you were first or starting in mountain biking? What were you wanting to know, and looking back, what would be most useful to tell yourself?
When I first started mountain biking, I wanted to know like everything. Like, when you first start something and that's like you don't know which piece of information you don't know what you want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Necessarily. So like everything's coming at you, and like I don't know if I would have changed that. To be honest, I think that's like the way that you do something. You just kind of work out. You kind of go through all the things and let it just come at you and just sort of work your way through it. If somebody was like, pick a discipline and go with it, like I wouldn't know what to do. Like try everything would be the advice I would get. Like I maybe discounted things like cross country and like cyclocross and stuff, but like I didn't like it, so that was like a good reason to discount it. But and I did try a cyclocross race once. I didn't know it was a cyclocross race when I did it, and it was one of the most upsetting afternoons of my life. But
I remember that as well, when I was wanting to get into racing, but I didn't know. You don't know about like the SDAs or like how to, at that time as well, how to enter them. I remember when I first tried, I couldn't. They went so quickly. But the first, it was always like a cross country race, and you thought it was going to be this like gnar fest. And then you arrive and you've got to sprint up this hill. It's like.
Well, I remember my mom entered me into the race, and she obviously didn't know what she was entering me into. It was just like a bike race off road, and like there was like in the cyclocross race, obviously there's bits that you have to like get off your bike and run, but it was so steep, and I was so small I couldn't get up it, and the marshal had the unfortunate task of helping me up it every time. Like I feel so sorry for that marshal. It was absolutely like. Maybe it wasn't that big a deal for like a grown person, but for like a 12-year-old, it's impossible to get up.
Totally. I suppose, you when you are, even as an adult now, like I've been trying to get into surfing recently. And so I'm watching like different YouTube guys, and you're trying to like learn this thing and that thing. And you don't necessarily, you don't know what you don't know. But you're building your sort of foundation, and then there's no way around that. It's just, takes time. You need to expose yourself to a lot of different avenues and a lot of different information, and then you will know which direction you want to
exactly go. It's the same with starting like the Contour Collective. I've been spending a lot more time like trying to learn a lot more about like filmmaking and media production, and like I've watched hours of footage, in the same way that I would have watched hours of MBUK DVDs on like How to Corner. Although, I tell you what, the DVD back in the day it was the dirt one, Fundamentals. Everyone should watch that now. That needs to be released on YouTube. Like, everyone needs to watch that. That was the one. You'll know that one, Hutch. That was so good.
Yeah, it was pretty... one of the best things Dirt probably brought out, actually. Apart from all the...
Probably have it behind me.
What was it? I don't know if I ever saw that. Was it like...
That's why you can't ride a bike, Morgan.
Slow down. You'll never want
I can see Fundamentals is holding up my computer screen.
It's a yellow box, isn't it?
A green box, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be, that needs to get online. Somebody needs to. That was
like a coaching DVD. That was
like each thing is like hosted by a pro. So like, there's like all the like old school like legends, like they like host a little bit, like Greg Menard does one, and it's actually ridiculous, to be fair, when you watch it. He's like, oh, this is how you like scrub a jump. And that one, to be fair, no one probably got any value out of, because it's like this gnarly jump. And he's just like scrubbing it, making it look awesome. But then there's like one, I think it was like Eric Carter or some other like 4-cross guy that like told you like how to manual through a set of rollers. And it was just like, and Bryn Atkinson, no, it's not. Is it Bryn Atkinson does like a cutty?
Of course it was Bryn Atkinson.
Yeah.
It has to be. The only...
And it's like got bits. It's got a King of the Pit section in it, and Nathan Redding is definitely King of the Pit. It's like he's unreal.
So that kind of stuff you did find helpful.
Oh, that DVD, I've watched it so many times. It doesn't work anymore. That's how often I've watched it.
That's funny. So when did you get into racing? How long after? How long had you been riding before you started racing?
I don't know. Probably when I first started riding, I had this like Apollo bike, and then immediately I wanted like a better bike. And I probably had that was a 2005 Hard Rock. And I did my first ever race in 2008, but I wanted to race in 2007. But I'm so pleased I missed the STA entry, because I wasn't good enough in 2008. So imagine what 2007 would have been.
So tell us about your first race in 2008.
Man, that was... I wish I had like video footage of it or something. Like, it was Dunkeld. And Dunkeld is gnarly, but like now I don't even think of it like that bad. But like it was like the most intimidating track like ever.
It's the only only track at the Scottish races where the juveniles don't race the top half.
Yeah, although they do now. They do now.
Do they?
Yeah. But like, well, they've made it a bit easier. They built up some of the turns, but it was made worse by the fact that like not long before the race, I'd like been up there with my step uncle, and he just like absolutely wrote himself off first run and like punctured his lung, and I was like terrified of the place. Anyway, it was in April and there was snow at the top, and like they built this new section that like I think is amazing now, but at the time it was like the most terrifying thing of all time. Like, you probably raced at Hutch and you're probably quite good then and thought like this is well good.
Yeah, I would have been riding for Mojo and Elite then, so it would have been Cathro and Stanbridge. So.
You would have been an Elite then. That's crazy.
I'm sure. I can't believe you just started riding then, Christo.
We could look and see our race result times.
Oh, how much time is different?
Definitely
that would be really interesting.
Let's
definitely do that.
Right, I'm on Roots and Rain now, so let's right, Dunkeld, I did a 4:26, came 44th out of 49, considered quitting mountain biking afterwards. That was in the youth category. Aaron Gannicott took the win in youth on a 2:24. He beat Lou Buchanan by 5.5 seconds. So everyone will know Lou Buchanan probably listening to this.
Wow.
But Hutch did a 2:30. He was like 2 minutes ahead of me.
Wait, Aaron Gannicott was a 2:24. Where would that have put him in Elite?
I remember, Aaron was having an incredible year that year, I think.
Really, he was an absolute... George too. I was thinking about George today. This is a bit of a sidetrack, but it's worth maybe mentioning for us at least. I was running past, you know where they had that IXS, the European IXS?
Yeah.
And they made this amazing new track that came out onto the field the first year when it was all dusty, and there was that gap over. You could gap over the.
Oh, I look at that now, and I think and I'm just like, that is the most ludicrous gap.
It's a.
It is ridiculous. It is mad.
George was a first year youth, just making that. He was so smooth, just coming in, just sailing off it like it was nothing. He was a really good youth rider.
Before we go back to the conversation, I just want to, for our own personal enjoyment, is to look at Dan Stanbridge won that race with a 2:14, which was like 8 seconds ahead of Ferg.
Wow.
Like he was just miles out ahead. That would have been
2:14 is
ridiculous.
That is a that's a very short time to get from the top to the bottom of Dunkeld, regardless of what the course was.
Yeah. So and the course was so muddy as well. It's ridiculous. I'll see if I can find a photo from my first race, not like dub it over this when we edit it.
we need to condense this part of it, possibly.
Yeah. First race, God, nightmare. I try not to think about it too much.
Yeah. So can you remember what your motivation was to get into racing? Like, why did you start racing?
It's all I knew about sport was you did sport and then you raced it. It didn't seem to me like there was like any at the time. It didn't seem like there was any other way. You know, it's just like you got into cycling and then you started racing. So I did. I didn't really have any motivations other than the fact that I thought I was good, but I was not.
Do you think it's funny because everyone we've spoken to so far, and certainly amongst the three of us, we're all like, oh well, you know, it was like immediate. Like I got into this and then I just wanted to start racing at it. But is that, do you think, the norm? Because obviously I think that's just something. Probably we're just quite competitive. And do you think maybe like there's just something in you that is quite competitive, and then so it was like the natural next step was to start racing, whereas like most people probably that get into riding that's not necessarily the next step for them?
I think it depends whether, so like I think naturally competitive people will seek out like a competition, and like I'm quite competitive, but like not even close to like you basically. Like I'm not that competitive really, like but I think that for me it was like all I'd ever done was sports. They were competitive, so when you did a sport, that's what you did, you raced it. Whereas like for most people, I think like if you aren't necessarily competitive and you don't like, because I did athletics, like doing a lot of track running, whereas if you didn't do anything like that, then you maybe didn't think about it. Or like when you read the magazines as well, like racing was like front and center, whereas now racing isn't front and center if you're like on like Pink Bike or something like that, you know. So you maybe don't think about the races too much. Also the regional and UK race scene was like, it seemed a lot bigger back then anyway. It doesn't seem like that now, but maybe I'm just out of touch.
Maybe. I also would say you are every bit as competitive as I am. I do say that sometimes myself. Sometimes I'll like be talking to my girlfriend or something and say like, oh yeah, you know, I'm not really very competitive, because like competitive people can be annoying, and obviously I don't want to be annoying. But I probably, thinking about it sometimes, it's hard to even, it's like there is just like always that sort of desire to compete. There's a difference though between being, you know, someone that's, I think if you are competitive, then you should just take that, you should go to a race and that's where you should be competitive. Do you know? Like if you need to like exercise that sort of desire at the place as opposed to, I don't know, in other ways.
And on Strava.
On Strava, yeah, exactly. Or social media.
That's no place to compete.
Yeah. I'm just looking at questions. Yeah, what did you think racing added to or has added? Because obviously the other thing is, I mean, you love racing, you love competing at mountain biking. At least you're still doing loads of events every year. You have been for the last 10.
Racing
10,
for me is like it's a opportunity to hone my craft, I would say. Like if you just out riding for fun, you kind of don't think about things too much. It's just like 10 times a year or so that you like properly dedicate to like riding perfectly. You know, you don't really do that so much when you're just out riding for fun. And then also because you want to do well at the races, you then care a bit more. When you're riding for fun, you might like try and link up the corners a bit better, or drop your heels more, or brake better or something. Whereas like you could just ride so passively. And I think that like is quite characterized quite a bit in like after the first few races, I was just like, oh, I'm never gonna make it. So like I just decided to go and like ride Brayfoot basically, which is this place in Fife with loads of jumps. And then Alan Finlay, who I was riding with at the time, he thought he could like make it basically. He just went and race loads and he got really good. And I was like, maybe I should have raced loads. Could have been good. I think it clicked when he qualified at the Wyndham World Cup. When I think we would have been like 17 or 18. And I was like, if I tried, could have been a lot better.
Yeah, it kind of forces you to try, I suppose. Looking back then on your racing career so far, what are some of the highlights for you?
Highlights for me. It's interesting. Like probably the highlights are, at the time you don't think they're going to necessarily be a highlight. A lot of them have come quite recently, but I've also had some race runs that I remember from like way back in the day that have just like always stuck with me. I think it was like 2009 Scottish Downhill in Leithen. I just like, I don't know, I just remember getting to the bottom and I was like, I don't remember that. And then like a day later, I could sort of remember it and was like, that was amazing. And then like actually the IXS track that you were talking about in Leithen, the year it was just pissing with rain. That was like really cool. That was like probably one of my better downhill results. But yeah, since starting racing enduro, like winning the Scottish Series was pretty cool. Kind of winning / not winning the UK Series for enduro. We'll not go into the weird rule that they had. not even slightly better about that at all. Put in the rule for 1 year, then took it away because they realized it was unfair.
What was that? I was just thinking of that thing that there was a whole meme about that. Norbs got robbed.
Norbs got robbed.
That?
Yeah,
that was ages ago now.
Yeah,
you got robbed.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, whatever.
Before we move on from racing, what do you think's one of the most interesting things about you, especially as a racer, has been this progression from when you started relatively late, not too late, but relatively late, compared with some of the top sort of guys, to being one of the top riders in the UK. What do you think the secret has been, or for you, what do off that progression?
Just keeping on going. Just keep plugging away. I think like nothing substitutes, just a lot of time put in, a lot of hard work. I think like a lot of people really get disheartened when they're not good at something straight away. But like the people that are good at something straight away, they are probably they just got lucky, basically. They managed to work it out first time, which is pretty unusual. You don't usually work it out first time. But like I think anyone with enough time can get like pretty good, I don't think there's anything really stopping you. I mean, you see it in people who start like quite a lot older. Like I was reading the interview that Ross Bell did with Michaela, and she didn't start riding until she was like 18, and then like within a year she was like riding the Fort William downhill track, and it's like I was like, bloody hell, rather you than me,
Do you think that because you weren't that good when you started, you quite early let go of any kind of I'm gonna make it soon mentality? So you were just
I was totally delusional. I thought I was gonna make it like up until I was like 17, and then I was like, actually this isn't really going that well, is it?
But that was because you didn't really start racing seriously until you were sort of 18, 19, until you were a senior.
Well, it's just because I had like 2 years of injury. But I mean, when I was in like junior and like the first year junior and second year youth, I was always thinking about like, I want to like, I don't know, be in the top 10. I want to be in the top 5 or whatever. I just thought like, if only I could just get that one good run in, I'll be there, which was totally delusional at the time. But like looking back on it, but I don't know. I've like.
Well, I suppose why do you think you've stuck with it to the extent that you have?
Because I just love it. There's no answer to that really. I mean, like, I don't know. I just didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to ride my bike and be good at it, basically. I sort of was of the opinion I didn't want to be like a jack of all trades, someone that could like, I don't know, was like kind of good at every sport. I'd rather be good at like really good at one sport. But like all my friends mountain biked. It'd be really hard for me to not mountain bike because I would just like not really have any friends, not really have anything to do. So
So it's an easy choice.
yeah, it was a choice of necessity, really. It was just for social survival.
Okay then, so moving on from racing, I asked Hutch this question, but I think it's quite a good one. Aside from the friends you've made or any success that you've had from racing, any sort of achievements or anything, what do you think riding has added to your life?
Riding has added, certainly makes me a lot healthier, and it's added this. I mean, we talk about this quite a lot. It's a desire to be an absolute. I don't want to ever be less fit than I am right now. So like when I'm getting into my sort of like late 30s and 40s, it's gonna have a real like midlife crisis around this fitness sort of thing.
I know, I'm dreading it. That's the problem. That's the competitiveness.
yeah, that's true. But what's it added? I don't know. Just pure joy, to be honest, and like quite a lot of structure just from the racing side. It just keeps you like focused. You always have something keeping you moving forwards. You don't get lost, really. I think it's quite easy to get lost if you don't have something like pushing you forwards like all the time. But yeah, it's just good times, really. That's like what is added, like just a lot of smiles on my face.
Yeah.
A lot of like best days ever.
Totally.
Like you get to the end of the day and you're like, that was the best day ever.
Yeah, it's interesting talking about it stops you kind of from getting lost because and that is an anchor, like through sort of our teens or through for me at least sort of early adulthood and stuff, whatever is like whatever sort of however difficult life can get, it is just this like anchor each weekend that is kind of the same, and it does stop you from I think it can be really powerful from like stopping you from getting lost. Okay, so this one this one's a little bit boring, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just to create some conversation.
Well, at least someone's gonna.
What trips have you been on outside of racing that stand out for you?
I've not been on any outside of racing.
That's why it's a boring question.
All my trips have been centered on racing. Actually, that's a lie. One of the first trips I went on, which I still sort of look back on with like a very fond nostalgia. I was like semi-injured at the time, and I went out to Teen with Callum McRitchie, sort of late on in the season. In fact, we rode on the last day that it was open, which turns out to be 31st of August. And it's bloody cold on the 31st of August in Teen. But I feel like whilst racing like punctuates a lot of your trips and takes you places, the trips where you actually don't have any racing, or when you are racing, you're kind of longing to be not racing on the trip. You're like, I kind of want to enjoy
They go hand in hand, don't they? The race and then the next week of just chilling and stuff go like this like perfect sandwich.
Yeah, the race like forces you to get there, and then you can kind of like enjoy it afterwards. But yeah, that trip was pretty good. Just being in an absolute like shonky van that like did not work at all. And like following the sat nav on some sketchy alpine roads, but that was a good trip. I remember that like quite fondly, but I'm pretty certain every other trip has involved a race at some point.
What do you think about, because you came when you were injured for a couple of years, you were just, there was like, was it as long as 2 years? There was certainly, I think, a couple of years where you were traveling around with like me and just helping out, pretty much.
Yeah, it'd be about that. I just I didn't know what to do with myself, basically. I was like injured and all I knew what to do was to go mountain biking. And I kind of like gone in so deep and like I just wasn't interested in like all the school bullshit, basically. Like parties and all that. Like I just wanted to race. So I just went to the races and didn't race. I don't know if I really learned anything from that about racing, but like I was always in the routine of a race, to be fair. Like I never like lost that, like how to go there or anything, you know. Kind of like I think the first winter ride, you like pull out your leg warmers or like your thick gloves for the first time. You're like, not done this in a while. How do you do this again? And I didn't have that so much like when I actually got back to racing because I'd just been turning up to them anyway.
I think as well you learn skills because you're kind of, we're always wanting to sort of team manage the thing, and so you learn skills certainly in the mountain bike world that you're then drawing on now to help with the Contour Collective.
Yeah. What's Hatch saying?
Something to say?
I was going to say, Christo, so there's obviously when you're asked that question, you automatically think of going abroad, which is kind of interesting. And I did exactly the same. I was just wondering whether there was any sort of trips in the UK, because that's certainly
that
for
is
me.
True.
You end up going on so many good riding weekends on local trails or trail centres, or we had like an amazing weekend in Wales, or was going to be an amazing weekend, and then you concussed yourself, and we ended up spending the day in A&E.
Which I thank you for a lot, and I owe you your next Revolution ticket.
For sure. I'll have to remember that. But yeah, there's so much good riding in the UK and places to go just now.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, to be honest. I've totally like forgotten about all the UK trips that we go on, and like in the summer we just went on this camping trip. A trip I've always wanted to do for ages was to like go up to Aviemore, camp, and like ride around there on like up the Burnside trails, head up to Inverness, right up there, and just do like a mate's camping trip basically. And like that was so good. I think like you get almost, like I said, like racing helps you not get lost, but you get lost in racing, and you sometimes like don't make time for these sorts of trips. Like like I was saying last year, people were like, "Oh, you're not like itching to get racing." That's like, no, I'm so glad they're all cancelled. Like this is the best year ever. You know, I don't know. I suppose it's like a bit of a love-hate relationship with going to races, but then like the trips that you do, it's hard to get trips organized because like it's just hard to get people to like commit to a weekend when it's not like an event. You know, it's just like you need to safeguard that time if you want that to happen. Almost you're more likely to go to a race by yourself, but like a trip that you're going to go on with your friends, you want like certain people to be there for the like trip to happen. But yeah, been on some amazing trips. I missed a couple this year. Everyone went up to Torridon, missed that one. That would have been, I think we were at a race. Yeah, but we've had some good trips in the UK though, Hutch. Like we went to Hamsterley. That was actually quite a good weekend riding somewhere new. And the Revs trip would have been good. It was good, except we spent a day in A&E, but the
everyone else had fun.
Everyone else had fun, yeah. I mean, I had fun being concussed.
I had fun trying to leave Wales. I think we all just had to drive through 2 foot of flooded water. I think Storm Kiara or something hit that weekend, so it was a bit of a nerve-wracking one getting away from the weekend.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. But yeah, I think like this year has definitely taught me to like safeguard more time to explore around your local. And when I say local, I mean the UK, really. There's just as good riding here as there is anywhere in the world. You just sort of like, it's like you're never a tourist in your own town. You never go to the tourist attractions. It's kind of the same sort of thing in the UK. Right? But need to make more time for
What
it.
is your schedule this year? Are you doing less races or the same?
Don't really know what the schedule is, to be honest. Hopefully some races will happen. But I don't really know what the schedule is. The schedule is full-time Contour Collective. We'll just be smashing that out, which should take us to some cool spots in the UK. That's the plan. But at the moment, there's no like dates in the diary, really, because nobody really knows.
So let's talk about the Contour Collective then. I was asking Hutch if he can remember the first time he met you. So I want to know if you can remember the first time you met Hutch.
Nah, I'm like Hutch as well, and I don't remember it really. I think it's the same. I think we just go back to that same story where Valberg was probably, it's going to the EWS is where we probably like first got chatting. Maybe not at Valberg, maybe one prior to Valberg. In 2016 probably that was, or 17. We probably first got chatting. Maybe in Ireland one time.
I actually remember the first time I saw Hutch.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I've got a better story. Well, it's not really a story, but at least I can remember, unlike you guys. We were at, it was a Dunkeld SDA, and Hutch was pushing up. I can't remember what year it was. We would have probably been, I think, the year after. It's possibly the one I broke my wrist at. So maybe the first year I was racing, 2009, I think it was, year after you. But you were just pushing up, and I was like, it's Hutch. And then, actually, no, you were there, Crystal, because you said something about him having a jersey for the next World Cup. So maybe I was a little bit older, because I was starting to think about that sort of stuff. So that was the first time. And then I also remember hearing about him, because you did Hutch did some video with, it must have been Orange Mojo or the cycle jersey at Christopher Hill. And we were like, no way, he rides
That was years ago.
He rides the same colors as.
I was just about to say, I remember, I think I remember we had a track at Christopher Hill, and it had been a bit like someone had just blown out some turns, and we were like, I hope that wasn't like, Chris Hutchins.
Hutch has been here.
I apologize, guys. I think I went out with Stu's Leo to film for his little sort of Scottish scene video. There was loads of good race like videos going on back then. People putting out sort of DVDs, which is cool back then.
Yeah, I've got one of those behind me. I got one of Ronan Taylor's Threshold, the Threshold DVD. Remember that?
Yeah,
Ronan
that was good.
That was a good one. That's probably got some vintage Chris Hutchins.
You used to do one yourself, did you not? What was yours called? It was something you
Scottish Descents.
That was yours, Chris?
Yeah.
What was that, a DVD? Or
it's just a video on Pink Bike.
All right, okay.
Yeah. You were like a filmmaker guy.
I was into it, but I remember literally making a decision one day. I was like, I just much prefer riding my bike than making videos. So I'm going to stop doing that.
Because you did quite a few. I remember you did one with Lou, you did one with Greg.
I did a few. Yeah. It's because I was injured a lot, I think. So I always got the video camera out.
Good skills, though, to draw on now.
Yeah, it's quite useful, to be fair. Like, I definitely made the sort of barrier to entry for video production these days like a lot shorter for me. Didn't need to learn as much. Back
to Hutch then. What do you remember? What you obviously don't remember your first impressions of him, but what did you think of Hutch when you were getting to know him?
I don't really know, to be honest, and that's not meant to be a negative. I'm just thinking back. I just remember we just had like a really friendly time, and we really got on. to be honest. And then before I knew it, I was sleeping side by side with him in
Careful what you say now.
One thing led to another.
Next thing,
hold on, let me finish the sentence, otherwise it does sound dodgy. In his van on the way to a race, as you do.
This is getting worse.
Flockhart was down below.
You did come together to do all these trips, though, so it's quite funny. You end up just jumping in a van with some guy you've met at a race for.
I feel there was quite an acceleration between. Like, we spoke in Valberg, and then the next year is 2017, and like I don't know how I would have known you more between Valberg and then, but you were in Ireland with the van. You took my bike out. I asked you if you could take my bike there, and then I don't know, we were chatting, and you were like, get a last minute entry to Mio, and then like I did, and then off we went.
I remember why you got me to take the van out, though. It was, I think you ended up flying out on Ryanair for £20. And then obviously I was driving out. So you were like, I've got a chance to save myself £80 on a...
£80, £120.
£120.
It's a big saving.
But yeah, that was a cost of an EWS entry. So it's like, that got you to Milao, I guess.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. So... yeah.
So then when he comes to you,
I was just going to say that's the story of Hutch and I's friendship.
So then when Hutch comes to you with this idea of the Contour Collective, what were your first thoughts of that, and why did you want to be involved in it?
I don't know. I suppose, I mean, you did come to me with it, Hutch. But I think at the same time, I was already thinking about like doing not this at all, and just like doing my own thing, and it just was like right timing sort of thing, and like I was totally on board with, like, I love the idea of it and really want to be part of it, and I think like both our skill sets really complement each other, which I think is quite good, and then there's quite a good. We're both like. Well, we're both pretty organized. I think I'm quite organized, but Hutch puts me to shame most of the time, to be fair. But like, at least not one of us is just. Well, one of us isn't you, basically.
No, I knew where that was going, and I was apprehensive, and then you proved me right. I'll have you know, my toolbox, I just cleaned it. There's less tools in it now, and it's organized, and also. I fold my clothes up. Carry on.
You've got a lot better, Morgan. A lot better. But yeah, I just think it's been a really good sort of working relationship, and with the experience of being on Wide Open together, and I think it's only going to get better. The Contour stuff, I think. I just think just the three of us working on it. I know you're mostly on the podcast side, but it's a really good like mix of skills involved to get this out, which is good. So I can't remember what the original question was. Just started talking about our.
Why did you want to be involved?
Why did I want to be involved?
Or at least, I mean, I'm going to ask you a more sort of specific question. That one was. The idea was just like, what was it about Hutch you wanted to work with, which is what you've just answered. What is the main message that you want to communicate through the Contour Collective?
So Hutch and I thought quite long about this. Maybe not so long, quite intensely about this, because we didn't have a lot of time to decide on it. But I think what we've got is pretty strong, and we both believe in it. And it's about the Contour Collective's core purpose is about making mountain biking more accessible, and that's obviously quite broad when you first look at it, and a lot of people might think different things about it. But I think if you take it in its simplest form, it's just making mountain biking. It's called making the core purpose is officially worded as making mountain biking more accessible for everyone. And by that, we mean we want to help people, whether they've never mountain biked before, from whatever background, get into mountain biking, see the benefits of it, and hopefully point them in the right direction of like how they can do that. Like, for example, if you like wanted to start mountain biking for the first time and you didn't have a clue what to do, we would, be like, go visit your local pump track. It's a great place to get started. But also we've got a lot of experience in mountain biking. We hope to get past some of that on as well. So if you're starting your first race, or you're thinking of trying, not being at the trail center, you're going to the off-piste trails. So it's just so people can access more, they can unlock like more features in the game.
Yeah. So it's about creating an access to the right information.
Yeah, basically, we just like, I think people, they get lost of like what to do next, or like how to take the next step, and we want to help them with that essentially. Just like, I know when I was younger, like, you didn't know, like, just the obvious thing was to go to a race, but you didn't necessarily. I don't think I breathed for a while. You didn't necessarily like know where to go riding, or what was like the right etiquette at certain trails, or I don't know, you didn't know anything. So it's just to try and help that. I've maybe been a bit vague in talking around that, but it's basically just about helping people of all backgrounds, all abilities, just take the next step. And it's not all going to be there this year. It's not all going to be there next year. It's just a steady growth over many years of work. We'll create a good resource, and hopefully we can help a lot of people.
That's a good answer. I've been watching this guy, James Hoffman, on YouTube.
The coffee man.
He's a coffee guy. But I didn't know how much I didn't know about coffee before watching this guy. And I've since realized I need to spend a lot more money on different coffee appliances. And the beans I was using that I thought were good enough, I've learned are not good enough. But the reason I bring that up is just, he is actually, like, it's a good example, because someone like that, you could be the same with, there's another guy, this guy Rick Beato, I don't know, he does this like things on music that's really interesting, and he's just very good at telling you why this like song is great, or how to, like, he does like lots of how-to videos, and he's an expert who's, each video tells you something, educates you with something you didn't know, which would be especially useful in case of the coffee guy, like how do you do this thing or that thing, and it's all like, you don't know before you start watching it, and it's not information that you can just Google necessarily, because it's not like you can't just Google a question and then find a trustworthy answer. So actually having a database that you trust, wherever that place is, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, is something that's really valuable to people.
Yeah, like for example, and I'm not saying that we're like the only people putting out the right answers when it comes to this, but like, there's a lot of YouTube tutorials and stuff about like proper technique or whatever, and like, I've watched a few of them and I'm thinking that's not quite right. And there's definitely like other good resources out there for certainly writing tutorials, and we're going to do a lot more than just writing tutorials, but like that credible source of information is like really important. And like, with us both being qualified coaches and basically being like really good mountain bikers, we hope that not just our technical skill tutorials that we're going to put out, because there'll be a few that go out every year, but also that knowledge of just like whether this trail is like how hard it actually is, because you can go someplace and it's a blue trail and it's not a blue trail. And if you're at Dunkeld and you're on Trail Forks and you see the trail called Blue Trail, that ain't no blue trail. Just to add credibility is like really important, like, is for us as well, like, not to just like be spouting stuff that we're not knowledgeable on. If we weren't knowledgeable about it, we would get the expert on, essentially.
Totally, yeah, and that is pretty unique, and there is definitely it will be very valuable having two people with lots of racing experience. Obviously, like two of the UK's best riders, might as well.
Well, Hutch is even a mountain leader now. He knows all about the outdoors. He's even more proficient in the outdoors than you and I's experience combined, Morgan, probably.
Well, you have the racing experience, which that adds credibility. James Hoffman, for instance, the coffee guy, he was the world barista champion. So you see that, and I'm like, okay. Now, I didn't know there was competitive barista championships, but as soon as I did, I knew where I needed to get my coffee information.
What are they competing on? Speed?
No, taste. Well, I think it's probably timed as well. Anyway, just the point is, like, if you're someone trying to get into mountain biking, the racing definitely does add credibility to the to that information. You know, if you were looking, like, I've been watching all these surfing videos because we get into surfing, and some of the people with the most helpful videos, you don't necessarily think that they're the best surfers, and but it would be even more valuable if they were also you trusted that they were also really good surfers, and racing does give you that. And I don't think there's really that many other racers doing a similar thing.
Not what we're doing. There's definitely racers that have become coaches, but we're doing a lot more. We're not coaches really in this. We're a guide to mountain biking in some ways.
In some ways, what you're trying to do is if someone did pay you to take them out coaching, and they could ask whatever questions, and you could take them and show them, oh, this thing, okay, we're not going to do that today. What you're doing is making that information that they could get in snippets from you as a coach. You're making it available to everyone without
a
coaching session.
That's certainly some of the content. Yeah, I don't know if you want to expand on that, Hutch, because I think we've gone down a bit of a coaching line. That's not exactly what we're
I
doing.
don't just mean coaching, because when if you were to pay for a coach, it's not just you're not just getting information on your technique or whatever. They're a knowledge database. You can ask them questions. If you're getting into a sport, you can ask them any questions you want.
Yeah, it's like if you hired a guide for the day, they would take you to the best trails on the day, like for the conditions and stuff. You wouldn't go down like an absolute slot mountain if it was a raining day. You'd go find a nice hard pack trail center. So yeah, it's just like all that experience is going to come out on the channel essentially just through various means.
What do you think, Hutch? We'll probably do another podcast on this and go into more detail, but do you have anything more to add to that?
I think sort of what Christo is saying is there's going to be something there for everyone that's either coming into mountain biking, whatever their background is, to then, helping guide them through to finding what trails there are, and we'll try and give a bit of information on what sort of level certain places are for riders, and just so people can maybe turn up to a venue and know what to expect and maybe get a bit of helping hand down there. And then obviously we'll be doing some content from races, which will be completely different and useful for a different group of people as well, but hopefully there'll be information in there. So hopefully it will just end up being this sort of channel where there's information for different levels of riders that will help them. It will make mountain biking or what they're trying to do in mountain biking more accessible. So that's probably a topic that can be debated and discussed quite a lot, but a lot more in future. So.
That's another episode.
Absolutely.
In terms of the future then, Christo, what are you doing? What's left of your racing ambitions? Let's start there.
What's left of my racing ambitions? My racing ambitions is just to keep continuing what I've been doing as always, which is just coaches love to say this, focusing on the process. They love that.
I like that.
But I'm very much, that's the only thing that sort of keeps you on track, is focusing on the process. So just keep doing what I'm doing, basically, not gonna make any rash changes or anything. And at the end of the day, I do genuinely go into a race trying to do just my best performance, not to like, I don't go into it thinking like, I'm going to bloody win this thing. And if I don't, then I'm going to go home and cry.
Sure, yeah. I just winked for the audio listeners. Carry on, Krista.
It'd be nice to go to it'd just be nice to keep improving the results, basically. But unless I'm on like a factory deal, like I always think that racing is just this like personal endeavor, like really, that I like to do and I like to share with other people. But riding wise, I just want to go ride in loads more cool places, and yeah, I just keep doing what I'm doing, but just new stuff, basically. It's maybe not that good an answer.
Okay, I'll give you a 6.
6 out of 10.
Is there anywhere in particular? Give me something. I suppose I don't want to make you say like, oh, I want to get this. There's this particular. I mean, I suppose if you were talking to a racer, just like someone that was all about the race, and someone like they'd be like, oh, I want to do this, which is that's kind of boring in itself. But do you have any specific sort of plans? It could be a trip, could be a race result. Is there anything that you're really focused on, or really just want to do in the future?
I mean, it's quite obvious, I think, to anyone that knows me that I want to do very well at the Tweed Valley EWS. I think a lot of other people from the UK they've basically moved to Innerleithen as well to do that. I've noticed a few people on Instagram have got a little house for rent in Innerleithen.
Hutch possible.
Hutch has been making some
he's been making moves into Innerleithen.
But yeah, I think like the past results I've had there, I could be on for like a pretty good result there. But I mean, to be honest, I just like putting down good race results. I don't care what the position is. I don't like being off the pace. But like, this is where I'm not that competitive. Like, I am quite easy to be like, oh, I came second. That's quite good. Like,
maybe because also so second is still a really good result. Okay, let's say you do shit. What happens then?
I don't know. Back to the drawing board. I don't know. I just like because I spent so many years injured. I've just kind of come to terms with the fact that I would rather come second or third or even 10th than go home injured. Like, I'm like, sweet, I went home healthy. Because I'd rather ride for the next 6 months than spend 6 months in the sofa. So
yeah, I think the thing with racing is it feels really good to meet the pressure, just like in terms of your own like a sense of self, to set an expectation or to have this pressure on you and to meet that expectation, like, or even if it's just of yourself. Like, that's why it's, like if 10th was a good result for you, it feels good because you were put in this high pressure situation and you dealt with it, and that's just like this really, that just feels really good, as a person to feel like, oh, I'm someone I can meet the demands of a high pressure situation. It gives you a lot of confidence, I think.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Well, you're only as fast as your last race result. So if your last race result was doing well, you're going really fast.
I've got one more here. I might as well ask it. What do you think are the best ways to increase the accessibility of mountain biking? We have pretty much answered that.
I don't think there's any right way, to be honest. I think everybody learns in different ways and everybody accesses information in different ways. I think depending on how old you are, will make a difference as well. How much money you have would make a difference, because if you had loads of money and you could just like have a one-on-one coach all the time, you would learn so much more and probably so much quicker than if you like could only watch one YouTube video a week. So money and time would have to go together in that regard. So I don't think there's any good best way. But I think for anyone who's just getting into mountain biking, like my advice would be to just like learn as much as you can, and ride your bike as much as you can. You learn the most out riding. You don't learn as much watching a video, but you can put it into practice. You can't watch just videos because then you never put it into practice. So it's like a combination of the two.
And just being patient as well.
Patience is so key.
Yeah, it's about
So
time on the
key.
bike.
You see, this is actually one of the things. Actually, this is so like at the Velo Solutions pump track in Edinburgh. Generally, when I'm there, I'm probably one of the best people there, and there's like a lot of kids that like they're just too small basically to be able to jump the jumps because they can't generate the force. But they're like, how do you get so good? And it's like easy practice. Like I've been doing this for over 10 years. It's they sort of think there's a shortcut. And I know when you're young, you just sort of like think you know everything. And like I would have probably thought the same. But like patience is key. You'll not get that good without just hours and hours of practice. And a pump track is a great place for that because you can get the most amount of riding time in on a mountain bike probably than anywhere else. So
Absolutely, yeah. They're an amazing place to hone your skills, especially as there's more going up all over the place. Cool. I think that's everything, Christo. Thank you for coming on the Derailed Podcast.
Sweet, it's been a pleasure. It's been good.
It's good to hear from you. I don't see you enough these days.
It's been like 2 days without a video chat from you.
It's been, I'm pretty sure we spoke yesterday, but the last 24 hours have been tough.
I don't know if we did speak yesterday. It was a bit of a.
Oh, really?
I think I was out of the house for 8.5 hours on the bike yesterday. Got back in the dark.
That must be
it was
why.
great.
Cool.
I would have phoned you
Thank you
otherwise.
very much.
I missed you. Yeah, no, it's been good. I'll speak to you later then. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, we hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please, as I said at the beginning, like, comment, subscribe. We will answer any questions you have because we don't get that many comments. So if you do ask a question, you will definitely get it answered. We are going to be doing releasing one of these every Thursday at 6 o'clock. So we've got some great guests lined up. Stay tuned for more, and thank you so much for watching.